measuring over 3 meters in length and approaching 100 kilograms in mass. This beast possesses the lethal capability to bring down a fully mature buffalo with one decisive snap of its jaws. When it traverses the terrain, a heavy silence descends upon the forest. Neither a relic of the dinosaur age, nor a product of mythology. This is the Komodo dragon. It stands as the singular apex predator on the planet that offers humanity a genuine glimpse into the world of prehistoric hunters. Yet the most haunting truth remains science has yet to fully decode it. What are its true origins? Why is its territory restricted to a handful of remote Indonesian enclaves? How did a reptile that has persisted since the Ice Age survive millions of years of brutal environmental volatility, even as every other titan perished? Across the arid, wind-whipped islands of Indonesia, where the heat scatters the white sand like swirling smoke, a creature resides that researchers approach with a mixture of reverence and dread, the Komodo dragon. What renders this animal truly extraordinary is not merely its armored, rugged skin or its serrated dentition, but the profound enigma of its provenance. For over a century, paleontologists have grappled with this riddle. Upon the initial discovery of the dragon in 1910, many explorers were convinced they had found a surviving branch of the dinosaur lineage, a notion born from an era still clinging to the hope that such monsters had not entirely vanished. While modern biology has debunked the dinosaur connection, classifying them instead as gargantuan lizards within the Varanidae, family close kin to the monitor lizards found throughout Australia and Asia, a much deeper mystery lingers. How did the Komodo dragon emerge, and how did it claim the throne as the solitary sovereign of these minuscule islands? Two primary scientific hypotheses currently contend. The first suggests that the dragon's roots are firmly planted in Australia. Fossil evidence excavated in Queensland indicates that its ancestor, the Megalania Prisca, was a colossal reptile reaching over 7 meters in length, roughly 2 million years ago. It is widely believed that Megalania faded into extinction around 40,000 years ago, coincident with the migration of Homo sapiens onto the Australian landmass. Some experts postulate that as sea levels fluctuated and continents fractured, a sequestered population was stranded on islands, where they gradually dwarfed in scale to become the modern Komodo dragon. If this perspective holds, these dragons are the last surviving heirs of Australia's ancient leviathans. Conversely, a different narrative is favored by a coalition of European and Indonesian biologists. They propose that the Komodo dragon did not migrate from Australia at all, but rather emerged through the archipelago via island gigantism, a process where organisms, sequestered on remote islands, often develop larger body proportions to fill vacant ecological niches. Lacking significant competition and surrounded by abundant prey like wild boar and deer, small monitor lizards allegedly scaled up, eventually claiming the role of apex predator. From this vantage, the dragon is not a foreign immigrant, but a native child of the islands, forged by hundreds of thousands of years of evolutionary seclusion. Both theories possess significant academic merit. The problem remains a scarcity of physical proof. The most ancient Komodo fossils recovered from Flores Island are merely 900,000 years old, a timeline too recent to confirm an Australian migration, yet insufficient to definitively prove local evolution. This million-year gap in the fossil record is frequently termed an evolutionary blind zone, a vital chapter missing from the Earth's natural history. Whether they are remnants of an ancient empire or proof that nature can conjure monsters from thin air, one certainty persists: they have inhabited this region for an eternity, observing the world's transformation while remaining defiantly unchanged. Perhaps it is this very shadowy origin that renders them so captivating. They remain a relic that even current science cannot fully categorize. As the sun climbs, the island of Komodo ignites, turning the landscape into a sizzling cauldron. Within this parched theater of scorching gusts, The massive hunter begins its patrol. It lacks the explosive speed of a leopard, the razor-sharp talons of a tiger, and the ambush precision of a crocodile. Nevertheless, once prey wanders into the dragon's olfactory range, escape becomes impossible. To comprehend why this reptile is celebrated as nature's ultimate killing apparatus, one must meticulously inspect its anatomy. Every facet, from the structural integrity of its teeth and the ruggedness of its scales to the complex chemistry of its salivary glands, has been refined by millions of years of natural selection for a singular, brutal function: to slaughter and consume. Consider the tongue as our starting point. As the Komodo navigates its territory, it flickers this appendage incessantly, far from a random gesture. This behavior constitutes a highly advanced sensory apparatus. By sampling the air, the forked tongue gathers aromatic molecules, which are then delivered to the Jacobson's organ within the cranium to decode the direction of a blood trail. Consequently, a Komodo can pinpoint a carcass from over 8 to 10 kilometers away, an olfactory feat that remains largely unmatched in the reptilian world. To this hunter, a solitary drop of hemoglobin acts as a beacon amidst the breeze. Once the target is locked, the Komodo advances with harrowing patience, creeping silently through the parched, yellow scrub. Upon closing to within a few meters, every sinew in its frame coils tight, and it unleashes a charge reaching speeds of 20 kilometers per hour. While the bite of a Komodo dragon registers at a modest 40 newtons, roughly equivalent to that of a large canine, it is the cocktail of substances flowing from those serrated teeth that spells doom. For decades, it was assumed that the dragon's lethality stemmed from septic bacteria within its saliva. Observers frequently documented water buffalo that, post-strike, would linger for days before collapsing from necrotic wounds, fostering the conviction that the lizard's mouth served as a reservoir for toxic pathogens. However, a 2009 study by the University of Melbourne unveiled the presence of hidden venom glands nestled in the lower mandible. These glands secrete over 50 distinct proteins, many mirroring the toxins found in cobras and vipers, designed to prevent clotting, plummet blood pressure, and cause the victim to hemorrhage until it falls. This accounts for the rapid demise of buffalo, even after they manage to flee the initial encounter. Yet this remains a fiercely debated topic in the scientific community. Certain experts contend that the venom is insufficiently potent to fell large ungulates, insisting that bacterial contamination remains the primary agent of mortality. To this day, evidence supports both camps, rendering the Komodo a rare enigma whose precise lethality is still argued part chemical assassin, part biological armory. After the strike, the dragon abstains from a frantic pursuit. It permits the quarry to bolt, following the scent with quiet resolve, waiting for the venom or infection to reach its zenith. Hours or even a full day may pass before the predator finally reclaims the corpse. Once the prey is felled, the Komodo is the first to arrive, utilizing its serrated teeth to dismantle the frame and consume the entire package. Fur, hide, and marrow alike. An adult can ingest 80% of its own mass in a single feeding, followed by a multi-day period of total inactivity for digestion. Waste is an alien concept. Every tissue is repurposed as fuel for this world-class apex predator. The dragon's physiology represents an exquisite synthesis of prehistoric architecture and modern refinement, with its dense, bony-plated scales shielding it from retaliation and muscular, grip-ready limbs. Every component of its frame serves a singular mandate: persistence in an unforgiving environment. It requires no erratic speed or explosive, short-lived power. Instead, the Komodo dictates turns through the sheer manipulation of time, patience, and the aroma of blood. Its slow, relentless, and flawless hunting methodology cements the dragon's status as a masterpiece of evolution, an organism that has achieved such perfect adaptation that further change has become unnecessary. Beyond its predatory brilliance, the Komodo functions as a master of survival in one of the planet's most punishing theaters. On the islands of Flores and Komodo, the dry season stretches across 8 months. Temperatures routinely climb past 40 C, the landscape remains barren, and potable water is treated as a luxury. How then? Does a cold-blooded entity persist where other reptiles struggle to draw breath? The secret lies in a drastically low metabolic rate. An adult thrives on only a few substantial meals per month. When it does feed, it consumes up to 80% of its own body weight, a feat comparable to a 60-kilogram human devouring 50 kilograms of steak in one sitting. Material that cannot be broken down, such as horn or hair, is regurgitated as compacted, heavy, and wet pellets. By clearing its digestive tract in this manner, the dragon avoids infection and maximizes energy efficiency. During intervals of famine, the Komodo transitions into an extreme energy conservation mode, slowing its heartbeat and remaining motionless for vast stretches. This half-sleep state functions similarly to the partial hibernation utilized by desert mammals. Although it is a cold-blooded animal that should theoretically rely on environmental heat, the Komodo can hunt for hours under the blistering sun while its core temperature remains locked at a stable 35 Ca, trait that baffles many physiologists. Some studies suggest its massive tail and back musculature act as biological batteries for heat storage, while other unproven hypotheses propose a dual-layer vascular system for internal regulation. Whatever the mechanism, it is clearly a form of thermoregulation that defies standard reptilian biology. Furthermore, the Komodo dragon belongs to the select few vertebrates capable of parthenogenesis, a form of asexual reproduction. In 2006, the Chester Zoo documented a female named Flora who produced 8 viable eggs despite zero contact with a male. Scientists confirmed that these embryos developed normally, all of which resulted in male offspring. This occurs when a female's egg cell fuses with a ghost egg cell, yielding an embryo with ZZ male chromosomes. While this mechanism serves as a crucial evolutionary insurance policy, allowing a single, isolated female to establish a new colony, experts caution that it drastically limits genetic diversity, leaving the population susceptible to disease or environmental shifts. It is a biological miracle that functions as a double-edged sword, even at birth. A hatchling measuring less than 40 centimeters finds its primary antagonist in the adult members of its own species. The survival rate for neonatal Komodos is meager, scarcely 10%, as the vast majority are devoured within their first week of life. To evade this fate, hatchlings ascend into the arboreal layer, where they reside in the canopy for 3 to 4 years, sustaining themselves on eggs, small birds, and insects. Only when their physical stature becomes formidable do these young dragons dare to descend to the forest floor. Yet even there, the gauntlet remains unforgiving. Adult males engage in perpetual territorial disputes, occasionally even consuming the remains of fallen rivals, while appearing barbaric. This cannibalistic tendency serves a functional purpose, regulating population density and reinforcing a natural mechanism that sustains ecological equilibrium. In the wild, Komodos can endure for up to 6 decades, possessing an ability to mend injuries with a velocity that dwarfs other reptilian counterparts. Genetic analysis reveals that their blood is saturated with incredibly potent antimicrobial peptides, which are capable of neutralizing dozens of distinct bacterial strains. Currently, researchers are exploring their potential for pharmacological breakthroughs, specifically in the synthesis of next-generation antibiotics. Truly, the dragon's physiology functions as a living laboratory, a site where evolution has spent eons experimenting to distill the most effective survival strategies for extreme habitats. From their capacity for parthenogenesis and thermoregulation to the antibacterial properties of their blood, the Komodo stands as a vivid evolutionary puzzle, it does not merely exist. It dominates by adhering to a proprietary set of mandates that set it apart from every other organism in its sphere. Just as we feel we have decoded this dragon, fresh enigmas arise. Do they possess genuine cognitive memory? Is it possible they utilize magnetic fields for navigation? Or do they interpret the world through lenses that remain entirely opaque to humanity? The following chapter seeks these answers. In the popular imagination, reptiles are often dismissed as simple slaves to instinct creatures defined solely by reproduction, feeding, and reflexive hunting. For the Komodo dragon, however, such a reductionist view is inaccurate. Recent investigations suggest that their cognitive abilities far exceed historical scientific consensus. The Komodo does not hunt by chance. Footage captured by automated cameras within protected reserves reveals that they strategically select ambush sites based on prey movement patterns and prevailing wind currents. They frequently lie in wait along deer trails, where the breeze effectively channels the scent of footsteps and blood. Upon a target entering their radius, the dragon resists the urge for an immediate strike, opting instead to circle and calculate an angle that eliminates any hope of flight down a slope or toward the shoreline. This behavior transcends mere impulse, indicating a capacity for short-term planning and deliberate calculation. Experts define this as situational awareness, the ability of an organism to evaluate its surroundings and execute the most effective response, a trait typically restricted to highly developed apex predators like dolphins or lions. At various research stations situated on Rinka Island, caretakers have noted that Komodos possess the ability to distinguish between individual humans. When a familiar staff member approaches, the animals remain composed and immobile. Conversely, the arrival of an unfamiliar person, particularly one trailing the aroma of meat, triggers an immediate alert response. The head is raised, the tongue flickers rapidly, and the dragon observes with intense scrutiny. Some individuals have even demonstrated the ability to recall specific caretakers after intervals exceeding 6 months, displaying unique reactions to faces they recognize. Such behavior is exceptionally rare among reptiles, as most species lack the neurological framework for long-term facial recognition. This has prompted scientists to pose radical new queries. Does their memory rely exclusively on olfactory cues? Or are they genuinely capable of experiential learning? While trials continue, early findings suggest that Komodos successfully associate rewards with actions, demonstrating the basic architecture of conditioned learning. Although Komodo dragons do not congregate in packs like lions or wolves, they nonetheless adhere to a rigid social hierarchy. During a communal feeding at a carcass, the largest individual claims priority, while smaller dragons yield the floor. As a result, prolonged physical conflict is rarely witnessed. They also engage in a sophisticated gestural language involving tail and head movements, lowering the cranium to signal deference to a superior, or whipping the tail rapidly to broadcast a warning. These rituals point to a nascent level of social organization, sufficient to minimize friction within their localized populations. When the mating season arrives, two males may be seen grappling while standing erect on their hind limbs, a spectacle reminiscent of predatory dinosaurs from the silver screen. More significantly, however, they duel only to establish rank, and almost never with the intention to kill. This represents a rare mastery over instinct, a form of self-control that is highly atypical for solitary carnivores. Whether Komodo dragons are capable of perceiving actual emotion remains a contentious frontier in the study of animal behavior. Certain researchers maintain that Komodos are driven solely by mechanical instinct, devoid of sentiments such as curiosity, pleasure, or fear. Nevertheless, field observations suggest a far more nuanced reality. Certain individuals kept in captivity appear to derive satisfaction from being gently stroked upon the neck or crown, often responding by lying motionless with their eyes shut for several minutes. While such conduct may not definitively prove the presence of complex emotion, it does suggest that these reptiles possess a social repertoire far richer than previously acknowledged. The cognitive capacity of the Komodo, though still awaiting precise quantification, is compelling biologists to fundamentally reassess their stance on reptilian intelligence. They are far from mere cold-blooded automatons. Behind those glassy, stoic eyes, one might encounter the calculating, ancient awareness of a survivor positioned at the very terminus of the evolutionary lineage. On Komodo Island, the apex of the food chain is occupied by a singular sovereign, the Komodo dragon, as no leopards, lions, or massive crocodiles compete for dominance here. Every inhabitant, from wild boar and deer to water buffalo, is subject to its sphere of influence. Yet, the dragon's true significance is found less in its serrated teeth than in its vital ecological function. It acts as the linchpin that maintains the stability of the natural order. When a dragon feasts upon a carcass, the remnants provide an essential banquet for bacteria and insects, effectively cycling nutrients back into the earth to nourish the grasses that sustain the next generation of prey. This constitutes a seamless cycle where the Komodo plays the dual roles of creator and destroyer. Should this species vanish, the consequences would be catastrophic. The populations of buffalo and deer would explode, leading to the eradication of vegetation, subsequent soil erosion, and the eventual collapse of the island's fragile ecosystem. Despite their solitary nature, Komodos exert a profound influence on their surroundings. Deer carefully shun territories flagged by the predator's scent. Monkeys and pythons adjust their migratory routes, and avian species broadcast alarm calls the moment the dragon's unique musk is detected. Through this mechanism termed the ecology of fear, the mere presence of the dragon is sufficient to reshape the behavioral patterns of an entire region. Even today, the migratory life of the dragon remains largely enigmatic. They are known to traverse dozens of kilometers and navigate across open sea, only to return with pinpoint accuracy to their home range. While some experts hypothesize that they may utilize Earth's magnetic field for orientation, definitive proof remains elusive. The Komodo is more than a ruler. It is the vital, rhythmic pulse of its island, acting as the delicate anchor that preserves the harmony of nature. When that equilibrium is shattered, the dragon will inevitably be the first to suffer. Global population estimates currently stand at a precarious 3,000 individuals, a harrowing statistic, given that they once spanned the breadth of Southeast Asia. Today, they are restricted to 5 small Indonesian enclaves: Padar, Gilimonting, Flores, Rinca, and Komodo. Even these last bastions are transforming with a velocity the species cannot match. Having survived ice ages and prehistoric extinction events, the dragon now confronts environmental shifts more rapid and severe than any it has faced previously. Diminishing rainfall and escalating temperatures have rendered food and water increasingly scarce, while rising tides frequently inundate low-lying nesting sites. Ecologists issue a grave warning if present trends persist. Half of their remaining habitat could be erased before this century concludes. Although mass tourism generates significant revenue, it also introduces noise, waste, and ecological instability. Persistent exposure to human visitors has altered the behavior of some dragons. Having lost their natural wariness, they have begun to eschew hunting in favor of scavenging for human refuse. Simultaneously, the rampant poaching of deer, their primary sustenance, compels them to range further afield, intensifying fatal confrontations with local communities. In response, Indonesia designated the region as Komodo National Park, securing its status as a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1991. Here, rangers oversee breeding zones, regulate visitor traffic, and monitor individual dragons via GPS tagging. Furthermore, select research institutions are trialing semi-wild breeding initiatives, where juveniles are raised in safety before being reintegrated into the wilderness. However, these interventions remain stopgap measures. Should their habitat continue to recede, there will be no sanctuary left to receive them. For over 2 million years, the Komodo dragon has braved every challenge nature could muster. Now, however, its future is held entirely within the grasp of humanity. Will we summon the responsibility and wisdom required to safeguard this entity? Or is the Komodo destined to become another entry in a museum gallery, resting beside the fossilized remains of its long-lost kin, the Megalania? Perhaps situated on the razor-thin margin between extinction and survival, the Komodo continues the silent struggle it has waged for millions of years. It remains an ancient consciousness battling to endure in a modern era. Throughout the Indonesian archipelago, the dragon moves with understated grace, a living remnant of the age of giants, having witnessed the rise of humanity, the shifting of oceans, and the erasure of the dinosaurs. It now confronts its final obstacle. Should this dragon fade into history, the Earth will forfeit far more than a unique primate species. It will lose the final living witness to the once magnificent past of our planet.